everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com, and welcome to the daily market outlook for futures and Forex, where we take a look at our big six markets. The main goal of the outlook is to create a plan for tomorrow so that we can be as prepared as possible for tomorrow's price action. So kicking off into the futures market, let's take a look at gold. Now, gold had a relatively wild day today. Big drive lower, and that massive drive lower so far has had a pretty big spike back up towards the top side. We found a lot of support off of the channel lows, and off of the channel lows, we've pushed all the way back up to the highs again. Now, the one thing that's really standing out here is this big battle zone, right? 1179.8 tends to be about the area where the market wants to find some confluence. It wants to come back to it. We found double bottom support. When they finally broke out, they found double top resistance. Chances are, if we do catch another leg to the upside, which does look fairly likely here, we're probably going to be gunning for that 1179.8 area. Now, one of the other things that kind of stands out here is all of these moves towards the downside have been very exhaustive. They're very heavy, and the reason they're exhaustive is because after that move is hit, they really couldn't get anything else going for several hours. In this case, the last time they did it, they corrected all the way back up to a new high. So whenever you have that type of situation, more likely than not, all of the sellers are jumping in here, scaling in higher if it goes further up, and everybody's taking their profit at a new low for a breakout move, and then they leave it alone for a little while and start scaling in again, and then push it down to a new low. There are probably a huge amount of sellers that are scaled into this up move thinking, you know what, we're probably going to get the same thing, and if we don't, chances are we're at least going to make an attempt to the downside. And right now, with this strong of a bullish correction, there's a good chance that there are going to be a lot of stops above the highs here or a lot of stops above resistance here, but even more sellers will be looking to fade into this. So in the bigger picture, I would rather be a seller, but right now the buyers own the market and we have to give them the credence to the move. So right now, looking to be a buyer to push the market back up towards the top. We did just come out of a wedge. They're trying to break out of the wedge. You can see the bears are having some very bad follow through. So there's a good likelihood that buyers are buying into the move, assuming that it's going to be a failure down here to try to get the pop back up to retest the highs and maybe finish off the job to that big area of resistance. So looking to be a buyer right around this area, honestly. It's a nice pullback that we're getting off of a huge run higher. But the one thing that kind of stands out is what happened last time. Big move down, and we went sideways. Big move down, big correction. Big move up, we're probably going to be in this for a while, right? So there's a good chance that we do find our way back up towards the highs, but we may be stuck in a little bit of a range for several hours before we get that run higher. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head on gold. Looking at crude oil, very exhaustive move down. They took back everything that happened this morning. They had a big run up into massive resistance, 52.34. That was the area that we were talking about in the live trade room today of essentially the weekend gap slamming its way higher, and it just hit its head smack on that level and turned right back around. When it looked like the buyers were going to try to start jumping in, right, good chance that buyers start trying to buy as low as possible because you're probably just going to go into a range for a little while. Got a big dump from the sellers. And that big move down, I think, shook out a lot of buyers. They realized, holy crap, that wasn't supposed to happen. Let's get out. So this next pullback here probably had a lot of sellers jumping in and a lot of buyers getting out of their earlier positions with at least as small of pain as they can get their hands on. And that inevitably led to a big breakout lower. And any buyers that were left holding the bag, they got stopped out, and they got stopped out aggressively. Now, we pushed all the way back down to the lows. In the lows, arguably, this whole area could be support, right? We had a double bottom support right there. It tried breaking through a little bit here. The overall low is at 51.04. Either way, you know, in this 5 or 6 tick zone, this is the huge area of support. Now, notice what's happening here. This is a very aggressive downside move, and even though it is very likely exhaustive, the sellers spent all of the ammo they had on that down move, we're still getting pinned to the lows. The buyers cannot get anything going. So what I would really like to see here, if I'm honest, is a little pop higher, get a trap on the highs, even above that most recent swing high, and then sell it right back down to the lows if it doesn't go right now. We're pinning down to the lows. That tends to show some very aggressive selling pressure, so don't be surprised if we break out through the bottom and keep going for a little while, maybe even finding that 51.04 area as a level of resistance. So looking to be a seller on crude, just not this far down. I would rather be a seller a little bit further up on a potential trap or something along the highs just to make life a little bit easier in terms of entries. And then finishing up the futures markets on the Dow, we have a big run higher here. And this big run higher, they managed to finally get the pullback, right? Big push up. They found a lower high after trapping several of the intermediary swings and dumped all the way back down to the kind of final line in the sand that the buyers had between 19,182 and 175. The buyers need to stay above this. If they're not able to stay above 182 to 175, they've got some problems. And then we may find ourselves pushing all the way back down to the lows. If, however, the buyers stay above that area, we may get several bounces off of that, but we're looking for a correction back up. Maybe not necessarily to a brand new high, it is possible, but at least to an area of falling resistance. Right now, the wider falling resistance could be right there. Otherwise, it could be right here. Now, this one is a little bit tighter, not very far away, but that might be all the buyers have in store. That was a pretty big bull move up. So far, the buyers are supporting it, but this is the last place that they can support it before they completely fall apart. So as long as the buyers stay above this, we should be good to go towards the upside. Maybe not all the way to a new high, but at least a good attempt on the way up. And then jumping on over to the Forex market, we've got our EURUSD. Now, the euro had a gargantuan reversal as well. This is kind of the same across the board. All of the markets had something like this. We started with a big move in one direction, and they took it all back in the opposite direction. Now, that big move up, that does give us a major target above at 1.08265. That's the big level that a lot of buyers are looking for right now. And good chance that once you get there, you're going to find a little bit of a stall, maybe a range, maybe even a reversal, depending on how many buyers are liquidating in that place and depending on how many sellers are willing to go counter trend in that major area of resistance. But the buyers are blatantly, obviously in control of this, right? We're not looking to sell, not a chance, right? We're looking to buy. Now, we want to buy a pullback, and this is an area where we're at the bottom of a channel low, right? Draw the highs up, A to B, right here to here, and transpose that line on the bottom, and that's the red level right there. Now, that gives us our C point to D, right? Our C point down here, and we're looking for a D point bounce. The one thing that's kind of standing out is we're getting a little bit grindy here and a little bit range bound. And sometimes when that happens, you're going to have a lot of buyers trying to pile in, thinking that this is support, pile in, thinking it's support, get a quick snap down to get all of them whipped out and all of the big buyers into the move, and then a bump right back up towards the top. So what I would really like to see is a little snap lower, down to 1.07406 to 7357, and look to be a buyer in that area before that run back up towards the highs, just to get a little bit of a trap. You may not get it, and sometimes waiting for that kind of entry may mean that you don't get the trade at all. But if we can get that little snap lower, that would be a beautiful place to become a buyer to push the market back up. The pound dollar, mostly a range, right? Mostly a range. We found a huge level of resistance between 27,433 down to 27,335, and we've been just kind of pinned up here, kind of bouncing back and forth, back and forth. Lots of support as well between 27,034 to 26,971, and we're just kind of bouncing back and forth. So as long as we stay within this range, we're looking to sell high and we're looking to buy low with a slight preference on buying low, just given the overall bullish momentum that we've had so far. That bullish momentum, don't put too much emphasis on it. Remember, the day overall is pretty much a range as well. We are breaking below the lows with a new lower low, but then we're also breaking to a new higher high. So don't get attached to one side for too long because you can get into some trouble. But right now, looking to sell the highs, looking to buy the lows. If we do get a breakout through that area, looking to buy the next level of support at 26,709 to 26,650 for a bounce back up from there. And then finally, we wrap up on the dollar yen. The dollar yen had quite just a crazy day today in terms of movement. By the time we came in, we were about right here, and we were buying into this move and caught a beautiful run towards the highs in a major resistance, 114,741. And then after it hit that resistance, man alive, this thing just fell apart. Huge drop through the bottom on just a gargantuan run lower. Now, obviously, given this amount of support down here, for whatever reason, there is a huge amount of supply down here, from 113,331 down to 113,151. And until we break through that area, the sellers are going to have a very hard time. They've got a huge brick wall in the way. Not only was that coming off of a double bottom, as well as a little resistance right there, but that also formed a huge reactionary bounce after that drive lower. Something or someone or some firm was there and they liquidated, and that caused this pretty big move up. We're now starting to go into a slight little range, a little bit of a wedge here, but the way that this wedge looks, we could just be going straight into a range, right? So at the moment, if you're trading a very fast time frame, looking to sell high, looking to buy low, with a slight emphasis on wanting to sell, to try to come back down to retest this area at around 113.31 to 151, and maybe even flip back into a buyer to try to get a correction back up into the earlier area at around 121 to 030 in the 114s. So very wide range on the dollar yen. You got to be a little bit careful, but it could be a really fun playground if we can get things kicking off there. So that's going to do it for this one. As always, make a plan, trade the plan, follow the plan, stick to your rules, and you will be A-OK. Make sure to jump on over to slingshotfutures.com, scroll down to the bottom, and click on that Join the Daily Outlook newsletter so you don't miss it and that you'll always know when all of this fun stuff is coming out. Outside of that, though, enjoy the rest of the day, everyone. Safe trading if you're trading the European session, and we will see you all tomorrow.